Right, The Listeners by Walter de la Mare, a little bit longer, so I might just summarize this one. What do you think about that?
What'd you say? I couldn't hear you. All right,
You
that's
weren't
my only one
listening.
pun.
All right, there we go. All right. So real quick, and maybe this will be useful for some because we don't always do the summary for poems, but this is a poem that tells a story about a traveler who walks up to a lonely moonlit house, aka it's nighttime in the forest, and he knocks not once but twice and receives no reply while his horse chomps and eats on the grass nearby. And although no one answers, the poem reveals that these phantasms, or the listeners, some ghostly presences, perhaps, we need to talk about that, are inside the house listening, but remain silent. And I'm not sure if they're unable or unwilling to reply. Another good question. Now, eventually, the traveler, feeling unheard, almost like yells at the house, "Tell them I came!" And no one answered. And then takes off, and yet still the listeners in the house remain silent and cold to his pleas. End poem. Kind of a, I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I was never really sure how to take the poem, to be honest.
This is one where a lot is left up to the reader. I think it's a lot similar to movies or shows where you're never really sure if there's something supernatural or not going on. It's hinted at, but there's never any definitive evidence. There's no boogeyman. There's no definitive ghost. There's nothing that feels concrete, like this is true supernatural. This is a horror film. This is a Halloween. It only hints at it. And I think that adds to the mystery and adds to its eeriness, because you're really unsure of, is this me? Is it all in my head? Am I reading too much into this? Is there something going on? And I really enjoyed that.
Yes. I had that exact same feeling where I'm like, well, they say the phantasms, but like, is this like the Edgar Allan Poe mind decay that's happening where we can't trust our own senses? Like, that has to be on the table. But let me ask this, just like on a personal level, when you first read this, or I don't know if you listened to it first, what was your initial reaction? Were you initially trusting the poem that these phantasms were real and there's actually ghostly apparitions hearing the material world and not replying? Or did you have the question about sanity and decay to begin with?
I think I had the question of sanity and decay to begin with. It just felt very apparent very quickly that this felt more maybe psychological horror than spiritual, literal horror.
Okay. I mean, when we look at who's living in this poem, in terms of human beings, not counting Mr. Horse, we have one person, right? There's only one character in this act, if you will. Yet we have all this dialogue from him, right? Like, are you listening? Tell them I was here. It's, you have the emotions of like fear, apprehension, almost, I guess, I don't know how you interpreted the ending when he's tell them I was here, but it implies this promissory note, tells them this obstinance of just, I faced it and came here. There's a lot of emotions that I feel like this main character goes through in a very short period of time, but he goes through it alone from a living perspective. At least if you took it, my first reaction was the opposite. My first reaction was that there were phantasms and that they were listening. I did come back to the madness later, but it made me kind of wonder, I don't know. One of the ways, because poetry brings out these things inside you, one of the ways that you can take this is that struggle with purpose in life, where whether you view it as a singular Christian God or whether you view it as these spirits or kamis from like a Japanese or Buddhist way with multiple ways of looking at reality and gods, there's something to be said about this divine hiddenness of, why can I never hear from like a holistic standpoint, but they can always see me, like a one-way street. It just seems kind of unfair to have to live this life based on these certain rules and expectations, and you just want to cry out, like, just tell me the answer. Is this true? Like, is this really how I'm supposed to drive and move towards life? And to be screaming at this house, screaming into the ether of the world is kind of how I took it, which maybe, I mean, definitely says more about me than anything else. But it's this existentialist problem, I feel like, of what is my purpose and am I on the right path of behaving this way in some ways?
Speaking of paths, I felt that this, not necessarily a haunted house story, it kind of feels like it a little bit, but it leaves you hanging. A lot for me came that this is a lot for me, this came from atmospheric horror. It's very eerie feeling, the house, the echoes. There's a lot of vivid imagery in here, and I felt like that added more than anything else. I think that your home is where you're supposed to be safe. And when you think of a haunted house, it's one of the most terrifying things of not being able to be in a home and be safe. And then not being able to see or hear or touch. And to your point of, it almost seems unfair. And I think that's where like the psychological and atmosphere kind of start to blend for me, is this is where I'm supposed to be my safest and I'm not, and I don't know what's going on, and that is terrifying.
Well, it's the dizziness of, like whenever you get bad news from like a medical standpoint, you just want to know the answer sometimes. Like, just tell, if it's bad, just tell me. Like, I just need to know the answer, because sometimes knowing, even if it's bad, is better than the unknown. And that's kind of what I think this speaker character, I guess I should say, is going through, is this, I don't know, like, I guess let me ask it more directly, because I kind of alluded to it earlier. Tell them I was here. What was his duty? What was his goal? Why was he at this house in your interpretation? Obviously, a very subjective, open question here.
So I kind of stole this from, I can't remember, spoilers, the name of the movie, but it's the one where Nicole Kidman is trapped in a house and they have the curtains up all the time. And that's where my mind immediately went to with this story, is he's the ghost. He's dead. And he's talking to the living people in there, and they can't see him. So it's an inverse ghost story, kind of like in that movie, and I can't remember the name of the movie, where it ends up the mom and the kids are the ghosts, and it portrays it as they are the living, but they're not. So it's kind of it's like, oh, the big shocking twist at the end. And that's kind of how I felt like this story is that he's telling them, I'm here. He's the spirit trying to let them know that I'm here. I'm still with you. Maybe that's the easy answer. I don't know.
So, well, I guess maybe I didn't understand. Are you saying his is the search for the afterlife, almost, in a sense? Like, did he know going up to this house that there were spirits and phantasms and that he probably wouldn't be able to hear them, or they are so cavalier that they don't even care to respond? Like, did he know that?
No. I think he's the phantasm. He's the spirit, and they're the living people.
Oh, he's the existential loneliness person looking for connection and can't because he's separated from everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, I never took that angle. That's interesting. I took it as this was man's quest to find meaning, like the existentialist journey, and sometimes like that hiddenness of the purpose of life. If there is some, like whether you're an absurdist, an existentialist, someone who's religious, there's this lack of definition that can be just so frustrating for a lot of people. And he has this anger towards it, to be yelling at these phantasms, to know that someone out there must know the answer, and to be not responded to. Like they can hear, but they don't even go to the windowsill to reply. It gives you this existential loneliness that, again, might be reflecting more upon myself. But that's kind of how I interpreted this poem, was this man is looking for that meaning to give purpose to his life, to purpose to his mission. Because let's say we don't know what his mission is, right? In existentialism, we have to define it, right? And I feel like that's what this man's trying to do, but it's never hearing any type of validation that he is correct, that is his mission.
Yeah, it's a strange story in that there's a lot of vivid imagery, there's a lot of sounds, and that there's a lot of tactile smells, things like that, the colors that are used in the poem to just paint this narrative, and then to have one side of it be so empty that there's nothing. There's no reply back. There's no, like you said, that there's no dialogue between these two sides, and it just hits you with this emptiness feeling. And for me, it was like, yeah.
Well, it's kind of like, even though we might have different opinions of, like, I viewed it as the man was living, and I took what the story told me at face value, that there were phantasms in this house that either didn't care or didn't want to respond. And you almost have like kind of like a different option of he was a phantasm and disconnected. At least I think that's what you said. However, we agree that there is this close brushing between the afterlife and life where neither one is willing or able to, on some level, communicate with the other side. There's a disconnection, regardless of which way you kind of take it.
Yeah, and it's a haunting story either way, right? Because if he can't connect or they can't connect with him, it still lends itself to that traditional haunted house, eerie feeling, isolationism, and not knowing. And I think that's what a lot of Halloween and stems from, is just, it's that unknown that is so terrifying to us, because we want to know as readers, we want to know as, humans and people. It just allows us to move through life easier if we have or know the answers, or can make sense of them.
And I think you're thinking of the movie The Others. I meant to reply to that earlier, and I
yes,
forgot.
That's it. The Others. Yeah.
Good old Grace. All right. So funny that her name's Grace. If you took it from like the Christian standpoint of trying to find God, find purpose, if that's your worldview, it's interesting that, totally random, but that grace is the only way to get there. Funny little side note. Anyways.
No laughing during Halloween, Una.
Yeah. Well, okay, but to that point, we chose this during Halloween as like a spooky read. And what is Hallows Eve, but when the veil between the afterlife and real life, whatever the right word is there, is thinnest, right? Where we can almost cross borders. And the phantasms could hear him, but it chose or couldn't respond to him on some level. It's interesting to think about that too as we move forward in just the spooky season. What does it mean? Like, if you could communicate with the other side, would you really want to hear the answer? Would you really want to know what they have to say? Because it's kind of like Ghost, like Patrick Swayze movie, where there's some things you probably don't want to know.
Yeah, I don't know. Not knowing, I mean, ignorance is bliss, but I don't know. A lot of people want to know. I bet a lot of people go to mediums and, crystal balls and all those things to try to figure out, or at least talk to, or know that your loved ones are somewhere still existing beyond just being held in your heart.
Did I ever tell you my son went to a medium? Is that a what do you call it? Like one of those like Halloween fests? It was like a guy. Yeah, his name was like Carl Voyant, I think it was. And of all the questions that he could ask, my son asked, he said, "Will I grow up to be a pilot?" And the guy, is dressed up like a mannequin, says, "You will work at a pilot gas station."
I bet your son was so bummed.
You know what? Well, let's put it this way. Whether you're this man that has a duty, a promise or obligation that must be fulfilled to find out the meaning for life, or whether you just want to find out what your career is going to be, make sure whatever question you're going to ask when the moment comes, you've got the right question. Which brings us to the end of the conversation. Hopefully, we don't have the answers. We mostly have questions and do explorations on this channel. If you enjoyed today's talk, though, and don't know what to say or don't know what to comment, but would like to help the ever-hungry YouTube algorithm know that you enjoyed the conversation, leaving a question mark even would be very helpful to us from a YouTube algorithm standpoint, but very confusing because I know some people, when they click on videos, they'll scroll down to the comments, and when they see a bunch of question marks, they're going to be very concerned about this video.
Oh, it's very, very eerie, spooky. Maybe the phantasms were just hitting that on your keyboard.
Yeah, you never know. They'll be like, well, this must be a questionable video, guys. I don't know if I should watch this.
Click, 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 click.
All right. Thank you for joining us. My name's been Una. I'll leave a playlist of, I don't know. This is the first time from this author, so I don't know. Maybe I'll put an author's playlist. Maybe I'll put a Halloween playlist down below. Who knows?
Peace.